And back here in the United States, Congress is getting ready to head out for the summer recess, awaiting them when they return in September. However, the highly anticipated vote on the Iran nuclear deal. Joining us with what we can expect is Congressman Patrick McHenry. He's a Republican from North Carolina. He is also the chief deputy whip. And Congressman McHenry, thank you for being here today.
Hey, thanks for having me back on.
The president laid out his case yesterday in a call to everyone to listen in, all of his supporters. He says that this is very important. He thinks that it was either this deal with Iran or war. What do you say to that?
I think it's a false premise, and his work is within the Democrat Party to hold enough of his members so we can't override his veto. He's got a tough road ahead to actually keep his party together on this bad agreement. You know, just simply because John Kerry says it's a good agreement doesn't mean that all of the Democrats in the House and the Senate will go along with that false premise.
You're the chief deputy whip. You're responsible for counting votes. Where do you think things stand right now?
Well, in the House, I mean, Republicans are nearly unified, and that's nearly all you can ask out of Republicans is to be nearly unified. And among Democrats, I think we've got a strong group, but currently not enough to override the president's veto. We need 43 Democrats in the House. I think by the time we get back in September, the case will have been made by folks understanding the contents of the agreement that we will be right on the edge of actually being able to override the president's veto.
What happens if you're actually successful? If you override the president's veto, where do you think that leaves us on the global scale, just in terms of this deal that we've announced? If it doesn't go through, what do we do now with the European partners who have said that they would like to end this embargo?
Well, look, I mean, we've had a sanctions regime with Iran effectively globally for the last 2 years, and that brought table. Prior to that, America was the leading on the leading edge of sanctions against Iran in this regime. And so I think we'll return back to what was pre 2-3 years ago, with a majority of global finance flowing through American corporations domiciled here in the United States. I think it would have a strong impact to the Iranian economy if we return back to the sanctions regime that we had in place.
But again, that sanctions regime is something that we have relied on Europeans to stick around with. And part of the argument for going ahead with these talks was that that was not going to be held together, that our partners were no longer going to stand by with that. If that were to fall apart, that partnership, then what do you do?
Well, then they would suffer the economic consequences, because if we return to our sanctions regime, they would have to make the tough call on whether to, trade with the #1 economy in the world, or do they have trade with a very small country in the global scale. So, look, what we've heard from John Kerry is we cannot have 535 secretaries of state. I'm reminded of seeing John Kerry during the last administration act not only as Secretary of State as a United States Senator, but also Secretary of Defense, Vice President, and President. So the fact that Congress has a say, has an opinion, is very much in keeping with our constitutional checks and balances. We have to exercise our right on behalf of the American people in the United States Congress. And I think we'll have Democrats come along with Republicans to stand firm against this bad agreement that will cause Iran, in time, to have all the ingredients for weaponization of their nuclear technology.
Hey, Patrick, it's Eric. Nice to see you.
Great to see you, Eric.
Listen, you know, I know you've been a
leader.
We
miss you, by the way.
Hey, listen, I know you're there and doing a great job counting those votes. So, I hear you talk about sort of the job the president's got ahead of him, and I think he does, because, as you know, I'm very much concerned. I think this agreement is a disaster. You correctly pointed out it's a false choice that's being set up, that it's either war or it's this agreement. So, what are you hearing from some of the colleagues on the other side of the aisle? Because I know that there are a lot of very, very strong advocates for a strong U.S.-Israel relationship. There are strong advocates for a strong America trying to stop Iran from its nuclear quest. What are you hearing from them? What are you hearing from the leaders like yourself on the other side of the aisle?
They hate being put in this box. That's the #1 thing. Please let's not vote on this. Please let's hold off. They realize that they're put in a tough choice between the president of their party and their long-term commitment to the security of our best partner on the globe, Israel. And so they don't want to have to make that choice. And it's a tough choice for them. I acknowledge that. But when we're looking for 43 Democrats in the House, we can count very easily well past that of those that are committed to Israel, committed to a strong national defense. And there are some reasonable Democrats in the House that will come along. But their initial reaction is, please hold off. We really don't want to be put in this box.
Congressman, if that's the case, then what each of those individual congresspeople hear when they go back to their districts should be very important. What do you think they'll be hearing when they go back to town halls this summer?
Well, I think they're going to say stand with Israel. I think they're going to say stand against Iran. I think they're going to say stand against a bad agreement. And once the American public more deeply understands this idea that if we want to have elections, we've got to wait 24 days after Iran gives us approval to go into a set group of areas. Yes. I mean, I don't think the American people will like this, and I think they're going to hear very strongly vote for the override of this agreement and vote for the override of this president's veto.
Things like those details, not being allowed to go in for 24 days. I mean, I'm assuming you were opposed to this deal even before that. Is there a deal that could have been reached that you would have signed off on?
Yes, I think there was a way to move forward, but you can't simply give sanctions relief on day one in the hope of future action from a deceitful and deceptive regime. The fact that you're going to have the flow of well over $100 billion for an economy that's flailing on day one is deeply problematic. That doesn't actually help the stability in the Middle East. It actually will help this regime flow that money into extremist groups, whether it's in Syria or around the region.
All right. Congressman McHenry, we want to thank you very much for your time today. We really appreciate it.